Welcome to the Unit 7 mini lesson 7.3 Forever Loops with Sensing Tools. In this mini lesson, we're going to learn how to use the forever loops to constantly repeat an action or check for conditions to be true. We'll also use if statements to check for conditions being true or false. This lets us make decisions, and the forever loops let us just keep repeating particular actions on the screen or checking for something. Object collisions, we're going to look for two objects colliding with each other. That's a term you should get to know, especially if you're interested in making video games in the long term, is object collision. Let's see, and we're also going to learn how to use the sensing block for touching. It's called touching sprite. That's the block we'll be using to detect the object collision. So Scratch makes it very easy for us to detect collisions, and game engines also allow us to easily check for collisions. If you were to program some collisions back in the 90s on Java, when games first started getting made in Java, it was a little bit more complex than what we've got, so we got it easy. Alright, so let's look at a forever loop. I'm going to show you the program first so you can see what is actually going on before we talk about the details. This will be the end product that you create. What we have is a donut, and then we have a sprite of a dog, and I call it dog puppy, and I'm not quite sure why I called it dog puppy, but I did. It made sense at the time. So whenever you click on the play button, or excuse me, the green flag tool, you'll notice that the donut just keeps spinning around and it won't ever stop until we stop the program. Okay, and it's inside this forever loop right here. If we look at the dog puppy, it also has a forever loop. However, its forever loop is checking to see if it's touching the other sprite for a collision called the donuts. And the only way we can detect if it is, we have to make them collide with each other. So we'll have to actually physically drag with our mouse the sprite over here, and then you'll see the collision happens because these loops detect it. This sprite says, okay, say hello when you have the collision. If we pull it off, you'll notice it no longer says hello. The donut, however, once it does touch the dog puppy sprite, it'll say time to stop, and then it stops this script, which you can see right here. It's no longer executing. It actually stopped the forever loop, whereas the dog puppy, its forever loop is still activated, and you can tell by that nice little aura around it, that little yellow kind of glow. So that tells it it's still operating. And I don't think there's anything on the stage. Yeah, nothing on the stage. So that's, in a nutshell, that's exactly what you're doing on this particular mini lesson. Okay, so let's break down the code here. The forever loop, it's a block that we get from the control category, and it's just going to keep any sort of code that's inside of it. It's just going to keep repeating that code over and over and over again, whether you like it or not, and you'll have to actually tell it to stop. It won't stop on its own until you program it to stop or choose the stop icon on the Scratch software. The if then statement, this is pretty neat here. This checks to see if a condition's true, and if the condition's true, whatever happens to fix inside this little hex key right here where we put a hex block, if this is true, whatever that condition is, it'll perform the action inside of it. If it's false, it doesn't do anything, and it just goes down below. And what we'll be doing is we'll use this hex block right here called touching, and there's a drop down arrow, and you'll be able to select a sprite name. If you remember from our Scratch program here, we were able to select from a drop down option here to choose the sprite called dog puppy. And if we were to go to dog puppy and choose its touching hex block, it would give us the option of choosing donut. If we were to add extra sprites to here, let's say I just pick some random sprite. There you go, beetle. Okay, come on, Scratch, hurry up. So we're just going to pick the beetle, and now the beetle's here. We go back to dog puppy, touching. We actually now have the option for beetle. So any sort of sprite you add to this will populate within the options for selecting them with this drop down menu. And you also notice we also have the option for detecting for the mouse pointer and detecting for the edge. So it allows you to easily detect if your sprite is on the edge of the screen, which is pretty cool. So you can tell it, say, hey, once you get to the edge, go do something else, or whatever. All right, back to this object collision. And what we're looking for is two objects that start to overlap. They don't actually collide because these are, programming objects. They're not physically real, unless you want to get into the physics of plasma and all that kind of stuff, but we're not going to do that. So what we're doing is we're saying when these two sprites, they start touching each other or the images overlap, then we'll say that's a collision. And we can detect that collision by using this forever block with the if statement and using the hex block touching with the correct sprite listed right here below. Okay, and that's how we'll be able to detect for the collision. Right here, these are all the items you need for your program, and then you can just go through the instructions on your own. It's pretty self-explanatory if you've done the other lessons. If you don't know how to program in Scratch yet, go back to our previous lesson so you can see all those in detail. And all right, well, good luck, and that should wrap it up for mini lesson 7.3.